Hey, hang on just a second. I gotta check this audio thingy. Give me a sound check. Because Lord knows we want to be heard. Listen, I don't intend to stay very long. Just wanted to give you this thought about the politics of the Concordant Publishing concern and the politics in the Unsearchable Riches magazine. And hang on, let me bring up the screen so I can share my thoughts a little more visually with you. Okay, here we have the screen over on the concordant.org site, the page devoted to the Unsearchable Riches magazine. So get this. They've been publishing this sucker since 1909. Man, how long is that? 120 years? 122 years? That is a long time to be publishing a magazine devoted to God and His Word. And so 1909, they went through the Bolshevik Revolution. They went through World War I, World War II, the creation of Israel, the nation of Israel, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, Johnson's bread and butter, guns and butter scheme, whatever. You know, his great welfare programs. They went through Nixon and closing the gold window and opening up the door to China. Oh, they saw the rise of the moral majority. And in all those years, they never did get involved in politics. They had nothing to say about President Wilson, President Roosevelt, Calvin Coolidge. They had nothing to say about women's rights to vote. They had nothing to say about Martin Luther King. They just didn't get involved in politics at all. The moral majority that came along in the 80s and 90s, man, they were all about politics. And even before then, there was Christianity gets involved in politics. But these guys, they just stuck to their knitting. And these green bound books here are the issues. Like each book here is 1 year of 1 year's worth of the Unsearchable Riches magazine. And in the beginning, each little issue of the magazine had a brown cover because, as I recall the story, they had a lot of brown paper in the back office in a warehouse. So it was just cheaper to use up that brown paper to make a cover for the magazine. Here lately, they're using white paper. Oh, they're using blue and white. Anyway, so I put a link below in the show description where you can join up on Rob Weil's channel, because Rob Weil is known to read the articles from the Unsearchable Riches magazine on a regular basis. So you might want to listen to him reading the articles. And I put a link over to the Concordant Publishing's website. It's called concordant.org. They have a lot of material there. And anyway, I linked to my own little blog station called Ace Theo something or another, Ace Theological something or another. Anyway, so the write-up here says, Unsearchable Riches published continuously since 1909 contains expositions and commentary pertaining to the scriptures. The title theme is from Ephesians 3, verse 8, to bring the evangel of the untraceable, or as the old King James says, the unsearchable, to bring the evangel of the unsearchable riches of Christ to the nations. So that's where the phrase comes from. And the concordant translation has the word unsearchable as really should be translated untraceable. And if you want to comment on Ephesians 3:8, the idea is that the revelation of Christ to the nations is hard to trace out in the Old Testament. It wasn't really apparent that God was going to be so gracious to the nations. Anyways, you can go to this page here. It says you may subscribe to Unsearchable Riches here. So there's a button to click. And if I'm not mistaken, they charge $1 a year to get their magazine. Can you afford $1 a year? Anyway, go ahead and send them a little bit more than $1 a year, because it costs them even a stamp for a regular envelope costs about 50 cents these days. So feel free to send them a good $20 if you want to be more equitable about the matter. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to say about the politics of the unsearchable riches. You won't find it there. I do believe in some of the old articles they do mention something about the nation of Israel, which came into existence, 1943 or so? And they say, if I remember right, they say, this doesn't necessarily mean, just because there is now a nation of Israel, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the fulfillment of the prophecies about, moving closer toward the kingdom of God and his Christ and ruling over Israel. It doesn't mean it's a fulfillment, because this could be just, a little bump in the road. This could be just a political thing, this new Israel thing. It might not have anything to do with the real formation, fulfillment of the prophecy. Anyway, there's a little link if you guys want to come in and chat about things. I have some more coffee left, so feel free, be my guest, come on in. But the idea behind my little chat is I'm complimenting the publishers of the Unsearchable Riches, and I'm complimenting the Concordant Publishing concern for not getting involved in politics. They weren't left, they weren't right, they were nothing. They had nothing to say about politics, and I believe that's the way to go. That's the way to go, because, when are you going to be, when are you going to speak up for some political thing? In Argentina, you're going to speak up about the Perón regime. In Germany of the 30s, you're going to be rah-rah for the Adolf regime. Are you going to be happy about the Reagan regime? You're going to be all up in arms about, let's vote for this Proposition 13 in California. Let me tell you a little about Proposition 13. It was a big political thing. They voted to limit taxes on real estate or something like this, right? But guess what happened when Prop 13 passed and taxes were severely restricted? Well, they just changed the other laws to make up for the shortfall. Like, getting a building permit now costs you way up there, and other kind of sales taxes. I mean, those guys they're going to get their money. They're going to get their blood. So my recommendation is to follow the lead of these brothers. You can't really even argue that Paul got involved in politics. Or Peter, James, and John, even in the circumcision writings, they didn't get involved in politics. Except for maybe King David and Solomon, those guys, they were the hub of politics. But in the New Testament, they weren't there trying to raise votes and change things. So there you have it. Hey, buddy.
How you doing?
Lovely.
This is good stuff. This is a bucket in my understanding and everything that since you were talking about this and I was thinking about Roth, I was like, man, that's a bucket I need to fill up. He's perfect for boy, he's really good at this. This unsearchable riches breakdown and information. It's good stuff.
Yeah. So, unsearchable riches, we could say that these guys were the first to bring us the news about the great division between the evangel of the circumcision and the evangel of the uncircumcision, and they were the first to explore it in any depth. We can see hints of it all the way back to Martin Luther, who thought that the book of Revelation and maybe the book of James shouldn't even be in the Bible. He was just annoyed with those things. So he was very Pauline in his approach, but he wasn't absolutely clear on how that the importance of the book of Revelation, the book of James, they're important. They're just part of the gospel of the circumcision. So
yeah, I have, I really have noticed a trend, not a trend, but it seems like this unsearchable riches and the concordant publishing concern a lot of the members that I see in the body of Christ. God really had them go through that as the wow. And you know what? I never really did. I read the all the introduction, and then I was introduced to the Latin words and the whole how they're translating, but I never really have gotten into this unsearchable riches like so many of you have. So it must be pretty incredible.
It is an amazing publication.
Yeah. The little bits I hear here and there, I'm like, yeah, but I just really haven't plumbed the depths of it. But like I said, that's a worthy bucket to fill up.
Right. And they have, changed their stance on a few positions. Like from the early days, they began the translation work along about 1910, and so over the years they've had to change their stance on various things, but they've always been eager to be in the right direction, to rightly divide the word of truth, and also to understand what it is to believe God. And the Pentecostal movement took off in this country long about 1910, I think, about the time their magazine got started, with the Azusa Street Revival. And hey, can you host the show for a couple minutes? I got to turn off the stove. I'll be right
back. Yeah, the big thing when I did when this concordant publishing concern came across my path, it was really in the beginning. It was in the beginning of the unraveling of this, bad translation. And then I did study all of all of his background as far as how how he created the whole. It's amazing about how he created the whole library, the dictionary of these Greek to English words first. That's amazing when you go and read that, and I think that's really all it took for me to really quantify these words that are being used to translate. These are real, and it gave a logical reason why, and it made so much sense. It just locked, like, hey, there's no, this is the best way to go about doing this, and I couldn't critique it. And when I would bring these scriptures in this concordant literal fashion to any opposing Christian leader, I did notice that they really didn't have much to say about it. They wouldn't argue, because even if they did, they'd go back and do a little research. And I too believe the reason the silence was always there is because they were hit with the same thing that all males are hit with, which is the logic, and you just can't get around it. So it's silence. It really kind of silenced all these proper translated scriptures. Even when they would go and research it, when they're saying, no, that's not what it means, I would hear silence when they were done researching, because I came to the conclusion they're running into the wall of logic and common sense, and they just can't get around it, and they don't know what to do about it. It doesn't fit the paradigm, so shit, I'm sorry. I'm not saying a thing. I'm just going to be quiet. So it's a powerful. I would really think if Paul's gospel was written today in our lives, this concordant literal thing going on would be it'd probably have a whole letter dedicated to it from Paul about this man and what he's done.
Dr. Mike has joined us. You got a song, Dr. Mike?
I don't know why people don't choose big pharma like politics.
Amen. Amen.
I don't know why people don't choose Christ like I chose Christ. Oh, I don't know why. But they're going to hell if they don't. I'm so happy about that. Oh, yeah. So when I exited, I don't know what you were prattling about, but I was saying just before I exited for a moment that the Azusa Street revival happened about 1910. And the Concordant Publishing concern, got on its legs about 1910. And lo and behold, the Azusa Street revival has influenced so many more people than what we got over here on our little channel, and among Martin Zender and Rob Weil and Scott Hicko and Drew Costin.
Wow.
The Azusa Street revival gave us the Pentecostal Holiness Church, Church of God, the Foursquare Gospel Church. They gave us Kenneth Copeland and Kenneth Hagin and Catherine Kuhlman. Oh my God, just millions of people have come in to the door of the Azusa Street revival with their speaking in tongues and divine healing. But they just don't know a dang thing about the unsearchable riches of God's grace to the nations.
Yeah. Wow, that's true. I never thought of that. Wow.
Okay, so Drew says unsearchable riches and the Bible student's notebook is to us as the watchtower and awake to the JWs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Only we don't pretend that ours are infallible interpretation of Scripture, since we acknowledge that we could be in the wrong places. Yeah. And we don't shun people who disagree with our interpretations. That's right. Because, we're all locked up in stubbornnness. So we might as well enjoy each other. Or at least I hope none of us do. Okay. You mock my pain.
Yeah. Only one Drew, isn't there?
Yeah, he's a darling.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Azusa Street revival. Let me make sure I've got the right thing. How do you spell Azusa?
I think it's AZ. isn't it? Or I know there's a ZU in there somewhere.
Oh, it says 1904. So they got a head start. That's why they're more popular than the Concordant Publishing concern, because they got a head start by 5 years, 4 or 5 years. If only Enoch and his pals had started 5 years earlier, yeah, we would have had the show rocking and rolling.
But God's smart.
Yeah, and Annie.
Yeah, he's smart. I'm getting better. So I've got half this riddle.
You look better.
Yeah, I am. It's MRSA.
MRSA,
So
what is that?
Staph.
Oh.
So I have it in my blood and all in my body. You know, that's what's been going on. But there's something else. I'm still waiting on a test. But I figured that I've been hiding this leprosy, but I feel better now.
Okay, so this is an article from 1906 about the Azusa Street revival. Okay, let me see if I can make it bigger so you can see it.
Fix my sound. I got a gardener.
Wednesday morning, April 18th, 1906, Los Angeles Daily Times. Weird babble of tongues. New sect of fanatics is breaking loose. Wild scene last night on Azusa Street. Gurgle of worthless talk by a sister. Okay, and then the readable text here says, the Azusa Street Revival was a historic Pentecostal revival meeting that took place in Los Angeles, California, and is the origin of the Pentecostal movement. It was led by William J. Seymour, an African-American preacher. It began with a meeting on April 14th, 1906, and continued roughly until 1915. The revival was characterized by ecstatic spiritual experiences accompanied by miracles, dramatic worship service, speaking in tongues, interracial minglings. The participants were criticized by the secular media and Christian theologians for behaviors considered to be outrageous and unorthodox, especially at that time, because they were so sophisticated, you know. Today, the revival is considered by historians to be the primary catalyst for the spread of Pentecostalism in the 20th century. And let's see. This is like a Wikipedia article. Anyway, so the Azusa Street Revival, this is funny. Oh, you know, this reminds me, I was having a discussion with a brother who was arguing that the signs and the wonders mentioned in Acts chapter 12 were still in effect. And maybe we shouldn't go so far as to, be so preachy about speaking in tongues. But, he argued that which is perfect is Jesus himself. And when Jesus himself returns, that's when the signs and the miracles will be put away. You got anything to say about that, Drew? Because I'm inclined to be in agreement with A. Enoch about this matter, that which is perfect is a reference to the administration of grace, and that the signs and the miracles are not apropos for what's going on now. And the speaking in tongues, I was involved in the Pentecostal boys and girls, and they are full of bulla. I was in it for years, and I didn't see any real legitimate speaking in tongues. It was just babble, like this article says, weird babble of tongues.
It's
Anyway.
coached. I was coached. You know, you just say, ba, 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 just let it go, let it flow. Ba, ba, humba, humba, la, humba, la, shuda, la, 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 la. There you go. There you go. La, la, la. Let it flow. Let it flow. He's
Yeah,
on you.
yeah.
He's on you.
Anyway, so in my little effort to teach on this channel, I point out that if you are going to have the signs and wonders and miracles of the Pentecostal era, where is the Ananias and Sapphira dropping dead? Because that also is a sign and a miracle and a wonder. So Kenneth Copeland, Kenneth Hagin, Joel Osteen, whoever these signs and wonders guys are, do you have any
Is
dead
that
bodies?
George up there?
Yeah, it's George, yeah. He's got to do things. Oh, good.
That's true. They would be dropping, wouldn't they? That's
Right,
totally
because
true.
that is
Damn.
the exact same time period. It's the Pentecostal time period. And
This is
as
so
I
true what you
understand,
just said. There would be people and not that would be happy.
so the dropping dead of Ananias and Sapphira is just like speaking in tongues and the lame walking and raising the dead, right? It's just the same type of weird miracles to get Israel's attention, because at the Pentecostal era, as I understand the whole big program of God, God was offering the kingdom of Israel to Israel. Well, and the reason Ananias and Sapphira dropped dead is because you can't have that corruption in the era of the kingdom. So Ananias and Sapphira dropped dead at a point in time when they were holding all things in common. They were sharing, they were selling their property and distributing the goods. They weren't attached to material things. Well, as things progressed and God was moving toward hanging out with the Gentiles and not offering them any law business, not making any deals with them, but just being gracious out of his own gracious heart. And there's no two-way street. It's all a one-way street. His grace. Anyway, so we don't have the signs and miracles. In fact, I suggest to you that the very fact that we Gentiles have faith, God gave us faith, that's a bigger miracle than tongues. That's a bigger miracle than speaking in tongues or divine healing or Ananias and Sapphira dropping dead. The fact that we believe.
Wow.
We, the Gentiles, who are prone to wild antics and worshiping ourselves and thinking that we're smarter than everybody else, we Gentiles who were scholars and smart, the fact that we believe, that's a big miracle. Bigger than anything that we see in the first 7 chapters of the book of Acts.
Wow. Yeah, they sure had an agenda. They had a policy. They had rules. People were even though it was freedom in Christ and everything. My goodness. Oh, Drew wrote about this?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I got to get over to Drew's. Boy, I've been out of the loop.
Anyway, so I almost forgot what the theme of the show was. That the theme of the show is that the brothers who put out the Unsearchable Riches magazine, they didn't have much in the way of politics going on, and that's a good thing. They weren't voting for this and moral majority for that. They were just minding their P's and Q's. That's glorious to me.
Yeah. Wow.
And Paul Paulson says, I'm glad you mentioned Romans 11:32, that God locks up altogether in stubbornness. Hot dog. That is a fine verse. We ought to embrace it. It ought to be as popular as John 3:16. God locks up altogether in stubbornness.
It is really the quintessential silver bullet, really, for any dispute between two believers.
Romans 11:32.
Yes, yeah, because you're in the all too. And so how in the hell can you sit there and be so dogmatic knowing you're locked up in stubbornness? And how can you be so stubborn about a goddamn point you believe in so much that you're willing to hurt someone over it? No, you're all locked up. We're both locked up here. Hold on. What the heck are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that thought process. That's that truth that you can't, that's that logic wall. Can't get over it.
Yeah.
Thank God for the concordant literal, huh? Makes that wall solid.
What a miracle. Los Angeles Daily Times. The weird babble of tongues, a new sect of fanatics. It is breaking loose. Wild scene last night on Azusa Street. I have a similar experience. Not that I would recount anything about my Pentecostal days when I was a young man in the 60s and 70s. But I have a similar experience of going down to Los Angeles and getting involved in a wild fanatical sect. And let's see, it happened along about 1980,
That's
maybe
a good year.
82. It was there was a weird, we could call it a revival of this pyramid scheme going on down in Los Angeles. And it was really a wild thing. So I lived up in Santa Barbara at the time. So me and a car full of people heard about this thing about these people who joined this pyramid scheme and were getting rather rich, like $32,000 in one night. And what was going on in this pyramid scheme is that somehow it got started and it got to be so popular that they started renting out warehouses in the warehouse section of Los Angeles because that was cheap and it was big enough for a large audience. And this guy would get up in front of the audience and he'd hype up this pyramid thing, how that you put in $1,000. I believe it was $1,000. It might have been more, but $500 would go to the guy at the top of the pyramid, and $500 would go to the person who brought you into the pyramid. And then then you're establishing the pyramid, and as you go up to 8 layers, as I recall, finally you get to host your own meeting. And then all the people in that audience who wanted to join in, they would give $500 to you and $500 to the person who brought them in. And it was just such an exciting thing. They all got so excited about it. And Santa Barbara is about 2-3 hour drive away from Los Angeles, depending on the traffic, to show you how far this thing had reached, because it had smothered Los Angeles to the point where it was big and it was happening, and it happened too fast for the media to get involved and warn anybody about it. And it happened in such an exciting way that we didn't know how pyramid schemes worked back in 1982. It was rather a new concept, that for these guys to come along and say, oh my God, this is so exciting. You just put in $1,000 and in 8 days you get $32,000 or whatever the numbers turned out to be. And so, but by the time we in Santa Barbara got involved, it had petered out in Los Angeles. So the guy who brought me in, he paid the money, but then the very next night there was a meeting going every night for these things. That's why I'm comparing it to the Azusa Street revival.
I see.
I'm comparing it not because it's religious, but because there was just a revival attitude about the whole thing. And we didn't know what was going on. We were all deceived by this thing. And so by the time us people in the outskirts, way outskirts of Los Angeles joined in, as far away as Santa Barbara, maybe even from San Luis Obispo, it was really starting to peter out. And so everybody who put in $1,000 expecting to get $32,000 in exactly 8 days because of the momentum that was going on in Los Angeles, they were gravely disappointed, because right after we came up there from Santa Barbara, there was about half as many people on the next night. And so there wasn't the momentum. And it was like struggling to get everybody pumped up about the matter, right? And so then the following night, like 2 nights later, it was even less than that. And so it was petering out fast. And so everybody realized that they had dumped their money into this thing and it was going nowhere. And then it just totally petered out. And I think it even has, this pyramid scheme from Los Angeles even has its own Wikipedia page. Because so many people were snookered by it.
Man, I wanted you to go back when you said it petered out, because this is key if no one understands how this works. So the petering out, that's the ultimate goal. And so when they're hyping all this stuff up, they're encouraging and they're making it like, so man, I'm going to get this amount back, because they keep doing it over. They keep doing these big payouts, and they're waiting for the perfect time where this, the maximum amount of people can then bet, throw their money in, and then they control it. And of course, the petering out is them cashing in on their, predetermined scheduled bad bet that they're going to keep all that money.
Yeah, the way a pyramid scheme works is that you have to have more people coming in every day than the day before, because you're losing one half of the dough. In this particular scheme, one half of your pay in went to the guy at the top, and then the other half went to the guy who just brought you in. And in between that guy and the guy at the top, there was 7 other people waiting their turn to be at the guy at the top. And so each day there had to be a multitude more of people coming in to support the whole program, right? And we didn't understand these things way back in 1982. We were just so excited with all this. It was the religious fervor. This is amazing. And I didn't understand it. And looking back, I remember thinking, on the second or third day when it would look like it was going to fall apart, something magic wasn't happening that was supposed to happen. I felt sorry for the people who dumped their money into it.
Yeah.
And but I didn't really understand the dynamics of how pyramid schemes are built on new suckers coming into the deal at the bottom every day or every week or every month. You just got to have more new suckers to support the top suckers.
There's plenty of them. Endless supply.
Yeah.
Christianity. Man, where else can you find this information now? Man, you come up with some crazy things that just seem nuts until you start breaking it. It's like, my gosh. The history. Incredible. The first account.
I'm doing a search for that LA pyramid scheme.
So this is, I was saying, as you were talking, I was like, man, this sounds like the creation of Amway when no one knew about it. And see, now we all do know about it. So, to put yourself in that spot where you're looking at this plan and all this math and the charts, and then money's coming in. My goodness, what a perfect scam. It's just like that one of my favorite movies with Robert Redford is The Sting. I love that movie.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you tell people the gist of it, in case they haven't seen it?
Very similar to this. So if you're like a bookie agent or whatever, you basically, since you're controlling the house and you can control, let's say, I encourage everyone to watch this series called Peaky Blinders. And in that, this family back in England, They basically they're the bookie. His family runs the betting, the booking thing for the whole city. And so, like in the Sting, he would go out there, his family would go out there and create this excitement about horses that are going to win. Well, he knew which horse was going to win because they're giving him cocaine.
Really?
Yeah, the Chinese, that's how they get their, that's how, then the Chinese, were controlling that whole betting scam, just like this Amway thing, the thing you're talking about, and just like in the Sting. So you control who wins or lose. So he could make that horse win by continuing, he knew that the Chinese were giving this horse cocaine. So he knew that that's who he's going to bet on. And he would have the people win like 8 times in a row. And then the whole city would then bet on that horse. And then that's when he'd pull the cocaine away and the horse would lose and the family would keep all the money.
Wow.
And that's the gist of the Sting, and that's the gist of Amway and all of it. Cashing in on emotionalism, the currency of the Western world today. They felt great. They were going to win. It's obvious. We're all susceptible.
All right, I found a good article that's over on UNZ, UNZ. I love that UNZ website. It has a great variety of material on history and politics and economics. It's just well researched, and they're not inclined to be conservative or liberal, but they're very astute. Anyway, so they've got this article from years ago, The Great California Pyramid Scheme Mania of May 1980. An almost forgotten incident. Let me bump it up in size, see if I can get that. An almost forgotten incident in American economic history was the pyramid scheme that swept Southern California during the stagflation of May 1980. Yet now that we know that about 2/3 of the housing bubble of 2000 to 2007 took place just in California, it's worth reviewing incidents from California's long history of financial manias. I missed out on the late 1980 climax of LA's pyramid fever because I got back to LA in May 16th, 1980, after graduating from Rice, and then left on May 20th for Europe. I recall reading about the early days in the local newspapers with amazement. Okay, just between you and me and the gatepost, I was there, so I didn't miss out on it. I was shocked by it all, at how we were all hoodwinked by this damn thing. Okay, when I got home a couple of months later, nobody ever spoke of it again. Oh, that is a precious little sentence. Because when you get hoodwinked by anything, you won't talk about it because you're embarrassed that you were hoodwinked. The difference between a pyramid scheme and a Ponzi scheme is mostly in the mechanizations of the pyramid scheme are out in the open. Time magazine's June 16, 1980 issue describes the mechanics of the great LA pyramid scheme. Quote, for $1,000 each, 32 newcomers buy slots at the bottom row of a pyramid-shaped roster. And each player pays 1/2 of his $1,000 to the person at the pinnacle, who ends up with $16,000. The new player also pays his remaining $500 to the person directly above him on the next tier, which contains 16 people. Since each person on that tier gets paid by 2 of the newcomers, he ends up with $1,000, thus recouping his original investment. As more people buy in, the players move up the chart. In time, theoretically, each person reaches the top and $16,000. The scheme caught on, as only California hustles can. Pawn shops didn't did a big business as players hawked stereos to raise the initial fee. Most players, however, were middle-class suburbanites out to fight inflation. Everyone seemed to know someone who had indeed won $16,000. There were runs on local banks for 50s and $100 bills to be used in this night's gaming. Dentists reported patients even giving mouthfuls of cotton, soliciting them to join the club. What the hell is this? Dentists reported patients even with mouthfuls of cotton, soliciting them to join the club. So they wanted the dentist to join the club. That's funny. Games were in unlikely hideaways, including Hollywood sound studios, chartered buses, and Grand Salon of the Queen Mary at Anchorage in Long Beach. The wild thing about this 1980 outburst was that it was the most blatant pyramid scheme imaginable, combining the unusual pyramid scheme mechanics with a New Age cult in the power of the pyramid. Back in Governor Jerry Brown's California, pyramid power was a popular New Age concept. Although there was never anything new about New Age in California, the lovely coastal mountain village of Ojai has been a New Age center since the 1800s. In 1977, I went to a fashionable Westwood hairstyling salon, where for a few bucks extra, you could get your hair cut in a special chair with a pyramid dangling from the ceiling. The pyramidal aurora was supposed to help you avoid bad hair days or something. I declined. But now I think about it, I did have a lot of BHDs. I don't know what that is. Oh, bad hair days. Okay, thanks, boy. In May 1980, a vast multi-level cash exchange craze developed in California that explicitly invoked the mystique of the pyramids. Every night, there were hundreds of house parties hosted by people who had gotten in early on this multi-level scam, perhaps the night before. My vague recollection from newspaper reports is that you'd go over to the higher-up's house and sit with him under his pyramid while you gave him cash returned for your very own kit for building up a pyramid of wire and fabric. The ancient Egyptians' emanation from this pyramid would ensure that you get even more cash back from the suckers you'd recruit to buy your pyramid kits while you were sitting under your pyramid. Wow. Perhaps I don't have the details right, but the pyramid imagery was central to the experience, which made this pyramid scheme hard to debunk. It was already pre-debunked. Anti-fraud authorities would go on local television news to denounce the pyramid schemes as pyramid schemes. Oh my God, I'm shocked. Which just served as a good advertising. Well, oh, that's funny. Don't get involved in these pyramid schemes. You might make money. Well, duh. Of course it's a pyramid scheme. Participants would laugh. Why do you think those Egyptian pharaohs got so rich?
Wow.
That they could afford those great giant pyramids through tapping the secret energy of pyramid power. Here are summaries of articles from the Los Angeles Herald Examiner from May 21st to June 1st, 1980. Now, I confess I was part of this crap. I was totally sucked in on it.
Oh, wow.
Get rich quick chains multiply too fast to stop. May 21st. Page A3, California Pyramid Schemes, participants in a cross-section, Los Angeles. Hundreds of calls a day asking about the legality. At least 100 clubs, 30 persons each. Parties busted. Alameda County High School pyramid. Ounce of marijuana to buy in. Pay off £1. Pyramids. Brother, can you spare a dime? 1980 style. About 40,000 attended pyramid parties in Los Angeles last night. Estimated 150 to 400 parties. Accounts of arrests. Most common ante $1,000 to win $16,000. Employee studio. People are talking about nothing else. Oh, God. So you see why I'm comparing this to the Azusa Street revival? There's always something. Some brought to meetings blindfolded. Oh my God. Some brought to meetings blindfolded. I never saw anything like it in all my experience as a bunco detective, completely beyond the scope of my imagination. A pyramid winner tells how she won her money. Elizabeth Krager, freelance writer 24, tells of splitting $16,000. I've made great business contacts because of this, says Ventura Freeway westbound jammed in evenings because of pyramid parties. The mood of pyramid participants turns ugly. May 24th, 2 accounts of anger at Burbank Pyramid site. Out-of-towners now predominate. That's when I got into it, probably. Out-of-towners now predominate. State Attorney General's office investigating possible links to organized crime. Ante goes up to 5,000. Wow. Celebrity attendance to daytime pyramid party attempt to deceive or intimidate reporter upon leaving. Police holds up pyramid power t-shirts confiscated in a raid. Letter A of the pyramid forms a pyramid. 500 rally at Griffith Park to promote money scheme. May 27th, signed at rally. Business concepts power happening. Attendance defense scheme. Claim winnings. Exchange pyramid gossip. Meeting with 237 buys a $100,000 ante game. Ventura County brings felony conspiracy charges. Lawyers address the crowd, urge no guilty pleas. Petition circulated to district attorney, citizens, individual rights, and collective legal expression called Circle. Distributes flyers criticizing police and the media. We want to be involved in the scheme. Tell the cops to leave us alone. Bearded man in pyramid tower t-shirt, signed, a money sign between the 2 words. I really feel like a sucker. June 1st, young printer's account of collapse of pyramid. Printed 300 pyramid charts, went in with 3 others at $250 each. Meeting at 8 p.m. sharp, door locked. Letter was read asking law enforcement and tax collection personnel to admit their role. Another person explains pyramids and asked for buy-ins. Last meeting, only people who had lost were present. Talked of violence. Oh my God. Those were the days. All right, so by reading this, can you see how we're all suckered into crap? There's just no end of it.
Locked up in stubbornness.
We're locked up in stubbornness. We're suckered into crap. And, the only thing that makes us smile is that, we trust God. We believe God. And God has arranged all of this for his ultimate glory. He's got to have something to save us from. So, Lord, save us from another goddamn pyramid scheme. Please. I'm begging you. and it's not hard to compare that 1980s pyramid scheme to our current vegetable juice jab going on right now. It certainly looks like everything to do with the pyramid scheme. Let's get everybody involved, and get everyone all hyped up. And I have it on good authority that Pfizer was not in the Garden of Eden, and somehow we survived without them for 5,000 years. So there.
What is really funny is the real truth is this is going on, the same scheme every single day. It's called the stock market.
Oh
And
yeah.
only those big ones, only the big people, all this, all these, what inside trading laws and all of that, that is done every single day. They
Hmm.
control the market. So they know when the horse is going to win, and they know when they're going to make the horse lose.
And
That's happening now.
yeah, you might be able to compare cryptocurrencies as a pyramid scheme.
I mean, everything. If you know your
Even
company,
even the Treasury bill coming out of the Federal Reserve note, it's a
yeah.
dang pyramid scheme.
I mean, if you're a corporation,
How many suckers can we get involved in
right,
believing that this is real money?
right. If you're the head of a corporation, you and your cronies, right? Like I'm talking like GE or anything like that. Well, you're so massive and you know what's coming down the road. You know what changes you're going to make. You can even decide that our stock is going to go down and you'll make money on that by, betting against it. So they really control that. They know what's going on. They know that they're getting ready to launch, a brand new car. No one else knows or whatever. And of course, they all start the crap. And then they'll hype it up and then drop it down. That's a hedge fund. That's why it's so secure.
Anyway, we live in a funny world. It's awful, it's terrible, but it's funny. And, Lord willing, He can bring us along to the mature place to where we say, oh, I get it, Father. You're in control of all these things. And it sure looks crazy, but at least it's entertaining. And we can't wait till you save us all from this crap. Because salvation is the point. It's not that we can manage our own lives. They killed Christ in ignorance, and we in Southern California were investing in this pyramid scheme in total ignorance. We didn't know how friggin' pyramid scheme worked. We didn't know that the guy at the top would get $16,000, but there'd have to be at least 32 guys at the bottom who were losing money.
Wow.
So there has to be more suckers coming into the pyramid scheme, or else it falls apart.
It's all life, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all about
economics are like this. Buy a house. Everyone deserves a house. Man, you're a human being. You're an American. It's your right to have a house.
and a house payment. Oh God,
knowing
it's a right.
the market.
It's a right to have a house payment.
Right. Knowing the market is so blown up that it's going to drop. And so if you know that and you hype up buy a house, and then your house that you're buying worth $300,000, it's going to be worth $180 in 2 years. Well, man, you can make tons of money controlling that, getting people to do things like that.
So, one reason I like watching old movies and old TV shows is I love seeing the economics of the old show. Like in an old rawhide cowboy show, they'll walk down the sidewalk right in front of a restaurant or a saloon, and they'll have a sign: breakfast and eggs, bacon and eggs, 25 cents. And I go, whoa, that's a sign of the wildly different economy than in the 1800s, where you can get a plate of bacon and eggs for 25 cents, as opposed to today, a plate of bacon and eggs might cost you $20. Anyway, so I love trying to see what's going on in the background of these old shows, and to learn lessons in economics and reality and perception going from then to now. In fact, I even like watching that bathing suit show. What do they call it? With David Hatch? Oh, Baywatch, yeah. I liked watching that just to see that was not very long ago. That was the 90s.
And those bathing suits were much better than the bathing suits today.
I'm telling you, you look at California today, and there's so many homeless people on the beach in tents, and they couldn't have a Baywatch television show today because there's not the money in California. It's an economics lesson that I'm seeing there. You know, the country was richer at that time when David Hasselhoff and Pamela Anderson were doing their thing. The country was richer. They had lifeguards who had money enough. A lifeguard salary could pay for their rent, right? Can that happen today? A lifeguard salary pay for your rent? I don't think so. The dynamics of economics has changed. And they had brand new ski-doos and brand new boat to get out there and save you. A lot of lessons you can learn from Baywatch.
I'm telling you, I remember. So I grew up in that time, and when I'm talking about the bathing suits and that it's a start. When you go back and watch shows like Baywatch, back then that was risque to me. It was taboo. And you look at today,
they can't afford that much fabric today.
Yeah, but man, those girls, and they look decent. You know, they look more compared to this stuff going on.
Well, anyway, so here's a couple other lessons you can learn from Baywatch, and then I'll go back even further to Alfred Hitchcock. So with Baywatch, here's a lesson you can learn. Nobody is interested in Pamela Anderson and David Hasselhoff anymore because they have just grown too old. So there's a lesson. We're all headed toward death. Mortality rules. Youthful lusts drool. And then, anyway, so skip all that stuff. So let's go back to Alfred Hitchcock. In one of the Alfred Hitchcock episodes, this woman, it was like 1958. The show was made in 1958, I think. And a house at the time only cost $5,000. Wow! You could buy a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom house for $5,000. This is crazy. Because now a 3-4-bedroom house costs $300,000, $400,000 depending on where you go. So, what's going on here? Why does a house, same house, that used to cost $5,000 now costs $500,000? It's because somebody's been printing up too much money, and we all know it. We all get the feeling that that there's too much money floating around out there, so we ask more for our house. Now get this. You buy a house, let's say you bought the house for $100,000 10 years ago, and now you can sell it for $400,000. Well, is the house actually worth $400,000 now? No, it's actually worth less because the plumbing is bad, the roof is bad, the paint is all fallen off. I mean, the house is actually worth less if you measure it in reality, but you can get $500,000 for this dang house. Why? Because those central bankers have just printed up too much money. And then on top of that, when you go and sell your house that you paid $100,000 for, now sell it for $500,000, you've got capital gains tax on top of that. That's a tax on top of a tax. So you watch these old TV shows like I do, and you see things that I couldn't see as a young man. And anyway, but you see things in human nature and economics and situational awareness and, all kinds of things are going on. And
yeah, you love that show, Peaky Blinders. You can catch it's a series. Man, it's incredible.
Say it again, because you're breaking up a little bit.
I said that I really think you would thoroughly enjoy that series, Peaky Blinders, for all these reasons right here.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the lead actor in there is really, as far as the way he is, I think it's really how a Christian should really, not a Christian, believer should get to where they're operating like that. The way he handles everything is just incredible in that time frame.
Oh,
That's
so
very real.
another thing about this this Alfred Hitchcock show made in 1958, where you buy a house for $5,000. Oh, the plot line of this particular episode was the woman jacked up the price of her house to $15,000, and she knew that the right guy would come along and pay the price. And who was the right guy? Well, it was the guy who killed her son. He killed her son, and he hid the money somewhere in that house. And so she knew that he would willingly pay $15,000 for a $5,000 house just to get access to the stolen money. Anyway, so this guy shows up and they argue a little bit, but he agrees to buy the house for this triple the price. And then toward the end of the show, she poisoned him with some poison lemonade to get revenge for killing her son. But anyway, the idea that the house could be had for $5,000 in 1958 is crazy, because today nobody buys a house. You buy a mortgage payment.
Yeah.
You buy a mortgage payment. You agree to enslave yourself for the next 30, 40, 50 years paying this dang mortgage. How did the banking institutions interject themselves into the housing business? So you're not buying a house, you're buying a mortgage payment, because they have somehow snuck themselves into the middle of it all. Now, if you took away the banking financing thing, if they couldn't finance the house, then the house would still be about $5,000 for a 3-4 bedroom house. But no, they have interjected themselves into the business, into the housing business. They loan you the money, and they make the most money out of the transaction. Anyway. So how did we
get
get
us back
here?
to the concordance.
How did we get here, baby? Oh yeah, here I'm bragging on how that the Concordant Publishing Concern did not get involved in politics for over 100 years, and we're chatting on about politics and bullshit here, aren't we? Something. All right. So here is your little invite. Richard, Dale, Cora Parker, DB, if you want to come in, Rob Weil, and Chainsaw Stanky, if you want to come in and contribute to the whole insanity. That's what we're all about here, is glorious insanity. What's this? At 2.4% inflation, the effective buying power of a dollar is cut by 50% every 16 years. This doubles the price about 5 times during the average adult lifespan.
Wow. Who said that now? Oh, man said, yeah. Wow, that's big.
Can you hear?
Yep. Yeah, your sound is good.
Okay, good.
How can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can. You're coming in just fine. Did you know anything about this pyramid scheme that was going on in 1980? How old were you in 1980, Jeremy?
I was, was I 20? No, I was, no, I'm sorry. I was born in 70, so I was 18. Right?
Right. So you never even heard it was going on, huh?
No, but I saw the other, like the Amways, and it was new. It was actually a viable conversation. Hey, without the awareness that we have now of MLMs being pretty much bad, usually.
Mm-hmm.
I got into a couple. There was one, a telephone one. I was selling that. Yeah, it was huge. But yeah, I'd go and let's sell it.
Was that Sprint before it was Sprint?
Yeah, it was something. Yeah, it was something like that. Some telecommunications, really big. It was the
Right.
same BS.
MCI or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And then my mom would sell insurance. I mean, she'd do all these things too. She'd make good money though. But another, these insurance schemes that they had that kind of had the pyramid flavor to it. Mm.
I just heard a report by a Dr. David Martin a couple of days ago, and he was making the argument that that our current world is being run by the insurance companies and their actuary models, and they don't want you to live too long. What they actually want is for you to make a lot of insurance payments, life insurance payments, and so forth, and then stop making payments so they can cancel the policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really don't care how long you live as long as they don't have to pay out. That's the point. And if and if you die due to the virus, oh, they've got some jiggered plan to where they don't have to pay out anyway. So it was kind of an interesting little public speech by Dr. David Martin. Anyway, if you guys ever want to go find him, it was interesting.
What'd you say? You asked a question right then?
No,
Okay.
not me.
Well, I have a question.
Teacher, I have a question. Go ahead.
Why, oh, why did I choose? Why can't they choose Jesus like me?
I guess
Why?
they don't have the talent. You got the talent, man. You're going to be rewarded for that talent.
Well, I'm trying to stay humble about the whole thing, but I think I'm arriving at the same conclusion you are. I've got something going here.
Yeah. Oh, Rob, you want to come in and give a plug for your channel? Because I did put
Man, please, Rob. Come on in.
I did put your channel link in the show notes down below. Because you're the one who, on a consistent basis, reads articles from the Concordant Publishing Concern and the Unsearchable Riches. So there.
And he knows a bunch of stuff about that. He's got old books that, he's got some amazing stuff going on with that. Well, Ace, I'm gonna
hightail it out of here.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to. I got to make a couple appointments.
Okay.
Man, great this morning. Thank you. I'll listen.
Welcome.
I'm getting ready.
All right.
All right. Take care. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. All right, so hang on. Let me see if I can make a little more sense of this page of the Unsearchable Riches. Oh, here we go. Nope. Just you'll have to weed your way through it to find. Okay, so let's say you wanted to look up 1938. What were they saying in 1938? So here's the Unsearchable Riches online. So I'm not going to read it. I'm just helping you see that over on the Concordant Publishing Concern, you can look at the articles for free or you can buy them. Oh, let's see what they had to say in 1966. Mr. A. Enoch died in 65, I believe, so his son became the editor. Let's see if they. Let's go back to 1965 and see if that's the year A. Enoch died. Editor Emeritus. Oh, he is old by the early part of 65. Anyway. All right, so I'll wind it up there. So hop on over to the Concordant Publishing Concern and see what you can find over there as far as articles regarding God and rightly dividing the word of truth and the differences between the gospel of the circumcision and the gospel of the uncircumcision and why Paul's evangel is called the untraceable riches of Christ. And also hop over to Rob Weil's site and listen to him read them. And anyway, that's it. Thanks, Rob, Richard, Sterling, D, Potter, and Drew, and Paul. Yeah. Come in. Grace to you. Amen.